And we are expecting now, as we are starting now, many more to join for this morning's session on Embed, the second day of the training session. And for the introduction of this morning, I'm going to share my screen. One moment. Can you see this? I hope, yeah.
Yes.
People nodding. Okay, so third day, first we had the first day we were focusing on the University of the Future, and yesterday morning, the first training session, and in the afternoon of Embed, and in the afternoon fully focused on the micro-credentials and connection of universities with the labor market. And for today, we have a more diverse program, all interesting topics, I believe. This afternoon, we are going to talk about Artificial Intelligence in Education by Fridolin Wild from the Open University. Then we have two sessions on diversity and inclusion by both Spanish contributions, one from the work in Catalonia on students with disabilities in online education, followed by UNED from Madrid on innovation and inclusion in higher education. And then we have a block on virtual mobility, which has become a more prominent topic in online education, and especially now also in relation to the COVID crisis. That will be a full hour by contribution by me, setting the framework for virtual mobility. And then we will have a contribution by Una Europa, one of the European University Alliances, and closing with a contribution by the DAAD, the German Agency for Academic International Academic Cooperation, also on new mobility patterns. For this morning, we have, for the second day of Embed, we will have a full introduction on the maturity model by Wiebe Dexner from Delft. And then we have, in collaboration also with Kai Leuven, Stefan Poelmans, we will set you out in working sessions, but you will get full information on how that will work later on from Wiebe. After the break, we will come back with reports of the breakout sessions, and then followed by an introduction to the Embed MOOC that was launched just before summer by Yi-Shan Tsai from the University of Edinburgh. She's currently in Taiwan. She will do the presentation at 11:45. And then we close with Q&A, but also with a reflection on the Embed model by a poll at the end of this morning. So let us start by the introduction of the maturity model. I would like to give the floor to Wiebe Dijkstra from TU Delft. And I will stop sharing.
Okay. So I will start sharing my screen. Screen share, let's see. Share.
In the meantime, I can tell you that you cannot raise your hand, but if you want to ask for the floor, you can do that in the chat. And I have to let you know that this session is being recorded.
Yeah, I hope you can all see my screen. Yesterday, we had an introduction in the Embed model, the European maturity model for blended education. And this model can help institutions, but also teachers and courses and programs to become more mature in their learning. And just recap, what's maturity? Well, maturity is the capability of an institution or a person to constantly improve his or her education. And in this session, we're going to do a short, sort of online workshop where you will actually work with the Embed model, and we'll take a look at your own institution. So, as I said, we're going to talk about the institution level. And what is an institution? An institution can be like a university or a university of applied science or another institution, but also maybe a bit smaller in, for example, also a faculty or a department in an university can also be an institution. It really depends how much, how your institution is organized. So, for example, in Delft, the faculties are a bit individual, or now not, how do you say it? Yeah, they have their own rules, regulations. So you can see those as an institution in themselves, part of a bigger institution. So, in this case, I'm going to talk about the TU Delft, Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. We have 8 faculties, and we have a very broad offering of courses and programs, and they're all technical. So that means that we have, for example, architecture, industrial design, but also, for example, applied science or mechanical engineering, civil engineering. So it's very broad in the technical side of studies. And this is a nice picture of our campus. Unfortunately, I haven't been to the campus for, I think, almost a half a year, but I guess you are all having the same issue. So we're going to look at TU Delft, the institution level. And a small recap of yesterday, the institution level, for each level, so we have a course level, program level, and in this case, the institution level, we described a couple of dimensions. And in this case, there are 8 dimensions, and each dimension has indicators. So what I will do now, I will walk by every dimension and describe how Delft is doing. And we're going to start with the institutional strategy. And yeah, you see the description, the extent to which blended learning, teaching, and education are embedded into the vision, educational models, and goals of the university. So these are the 3 levels. So level 1, there is no uniform blended learning strategy. Level 2, there's a dedicated blended learning strategy. And level 3, it is an integral part of the institutional strategy. And in our case, I think we are at level 3, so our strategy is quite good, I think. We're really having a clear vision on how we want to use blended learning in our institution. And also the university administrators, like our Vice Director of Education and the departments, recognize and advocate the importance of blended learning, teaching, and education. And just to give an example, for example, we're now hiring 8 blended learning advisors for each faculty, just to make sure that blended learning will be more embedded into the university. So we have a clear vision. Also, the blended learning is often part, or actually always part, of the educational vision of both the university, but also the educational vision. Sometimes the faculties have their own educational vision. So this is really good integrated. Then we go to the institutional support. The manner in which an institution supports teachers and students in blended learning activities. So you can think of, for example, is there a help desk if teachers need support? Or is there like someone who can help them set up their Brightspace, their learning environment? So we have 3 levels. Level 1, there is limited support for blended learning and teaching and aimed at the individual teaching staff and students. And this is usually what you see as when an institution starts with technology enhanced learning or blended learning, that there is, you need to know the guy who can help you with the support. But this is not available for all the teachers, and you really need to know who to get to. The second level is there is dedicated support for blended learning and teaching for all teachers and students and departments. So what you also see if you go to the next step, then you usually see that there is, for example, a dedicated desk where you can go to as a teacher if you want to do something with blended learning. So a blended learning desk, or and there are people who are really specialized in blended learning or tools for education, then they can help you. Then we're moving to level 3. And support for blended learning and teaching is part of the standard support service of the university. So in this case, there is not a special desk where you can go to, but you can just go to your regular support department, and there you can also find all the support you need for blended learning. And the last part, continuous quality improvement, is deliberately embedded in order to improve the support for blended learning. This is what we say, this is really the maturity part. So you're continuously improving the quality of your service. And I think in Delft, I think we're a bit between 2 and 3. We have a dedicated support. It's becoming much more part of the standard support, so that we're moving to a sort of one-stop shop idea where the teachers can go just to one place or one email address where they can find all the support they need. But for example, for now, we have a special email address for the learning environment, or a special walk-in hour for the learning environment. So we're moving to 3, and also we're trying to do the continuous quality improvement. So we have started the process where we implement the system which can track all the questions which come in. And based on that information, we can improve our services. So for example, if we see there's an, if we see there is an, a question coming up again and again and again, then probably we should do something with that. But we're moving to 3, but at this moment, I think we're more towards 2. Sharing in communities. The degree to which an institution facilitates communities for sharing blended practices, materials, and courses. So in this case, it's about, does the institution offer something to share, for example, blended practices and materials? So for example, is there a repository where teachers can find materials of other teachers and reuse those? Level 1, ad hoc. The individual teachers or departments share best practices, and then you usually see that one teacher is very passionate about his course or a specific thing he did in his course, and he shares it with all the other teachers. And this is really that individual teachers do that. The second level, communities for sharing blended best practices are facilitated. So there are some activities organized. And there are also some processes and/or platforms in place to share good practices and materials. So for example, a repository for materials, or maybe a website where you can share good practices. And level 3 is the communities for sharing blended best practices are facilitated and actively built and maintained. So this is a bit of a higher level that also people are working on the communities, because the tricky part with communities, it can be hard to maintain them and to make sure that they stay active. So then you also have some people who actively build communities. And again, the processes and platforms are in place for sharing good practices, and the processes are in place for quality assurance of the shared materials. So for example, that someone checks if the materials are high quality. Because if you have a repository with all like rubbish materials, also people will not use it. So this is also, again, the part of the maturity, so that you keep improving yourself and reflecting on what you do. And I think also in Delft, we are at level 2. We have some communities. Some initiatives started before COVID to also to go more to level 3, so that there are also people involved in facilitating the communities. But I think for now, we're on level 2. For example, we also have lunch lectures once a month where teachers share best practices, and people can go in for a sandwich and listen to a colleague. The professional development. The extent to which teaching staff are able to develop their blended learning skills. This is also important. So, for example, can they do workshops or courses on blended learning and teaching? Because if they need to find out everything themselves, it will be a hard way to go to blended learning. So, level 1, a few different workshops or courses are offered. Level 2, a solid effort to organize workshops and blended and courses related to blended learning and teaching. And level 3 is that all the staff is trained in blended teaching and learning. Well, in Delft, I think we're in level 2. We offer a lot of workshops related to blended learning. So this is, for example, how to design a blended course, but also how to create a video on your computer, or how can you, if you have a camera, how to stand in front of a camera, or how to write a script. But those are not part of the standard offering for teachers. So in the Netherlands, for example, you have the university teaching qualifications. That is like a program for new teachers. They need to follow this. And for example, blended learning is not really an integral part of the UTQ in Delft. The other part of level 3 is the blended learning activities of staff are recognized and valued by the institution. So this means, for example, that if you want to follow a course on blended learning or a workshop, that your manager also approves of this and also supports this. Because if the manager says, well, no, you have to do your research and write a new grant proposal, then people are also not really stimulated to develop themselves. And I think this is also something we can still improve in Delft. So quality assurance. The process where blended courses, programs, strategy, rules, and regulations are evaluated and revised on a regular basis. So quality assurance is really that you constantly check the quality of what you're doing. And this is on blended courses and programs. So for example, also if you have, for example, course evaluation forms, but also you need to evaluate your strategy and rules and regulations. So more on institutional level, and see if this is effective and if this can be improved. Level 1, there is no deliberate quality assurance for blended courses, programs, strategies, and policies. So then you have just this, there's no special attention to the blended part. Level 2, special processes are in place for blended courses and programs, and some research is conducted. And the research focus again on that you constantly checks what you're doing, does it have effect, and based on that research, should we change something? And level 3 is that the quality assurance for blended courses is part of the standard quality assurance process in the university. So then in that case, blended learning is part of the default. And also about the research, there's a research agenda. So there's a structural plan to review and research your own education. So, and in Delft, unfortunately, we're on level 1. So for example, in course evaluations, we do not have specific questions about the online part of education. So for example, how did the students, what did students think of the learning environment, of the online materials? So this is something we really need to improve. I'm going to pause for a minute. So I'm also curious if there are any questions or remarks at this. Okay, I see a remark about the download for the PDF for the breakout sessions. I will share that later when we're really going to start. So are there any other questions? You can also open up your mic and ask them, or put them in the chat. And if not, I will continue with the governance. We have 3 dimensions more to go. So this is dimension 5. And I think we can go to governance. There it is. Governance. This is all about how the visions and policies are translated into rules, regulations, and actions that facilitate blended learning and of blended education. So what you usually see if you have a good vision on blended learning and a strategy how you want to incorporate it, but you don't have a good governance structure, so that you make sure that it is really implemented in the university, then probably not much will happen. So this is also an important part of making sure that the strategy and the vision are really implemented. So the first one, there are some informal rules, regulations, actions, plans, and guidelines related to blended learning. So in this case, people are starting with some policies, for example, but it's not a really structural approach. And another part, the institution doesn't have a standardized models for blended course and program design. This is that nothing really is organized structurally and thoroughly. The next level, level 2, the rules, policies, rules and regulations and guidelines related to blended learning are developed and implemented. So then you really start to implement all those rules and regulations. And also, for example, the university has a model or a design principle for blended course and program design, and they are shared in the institution. And the last level is, again, the highest level of maturity is that it is integral part of the standard governance structure. So that it's not a special thing, blended learning, but it's really integrated into the whole governance structure of your university. And an important part there is that key actors at different levels in the institution are also involved. So for example, that the deans of the faculties or the heads of education and students affairs are also involved in the blended learning rules and regulations, and that they make sure that it's also implemented. And there are standardized models for blended learning course and program developments. So I think in Delft, we are again at level 1. So this is also something we really can work on. Although we have a standardized model for designing blended courses and programs, We used the Carpe Diem design approach. And we're in the process of making sure that that will be a sort of standard design approach in the whole university. So we're moving a bit towards 2, but especially the policies, rules, regulations, and actions plan guidelines are not really implemented as good as we wanted. So next one, finances. So if you don't have money, nothing will happen, right? So the finances, this is the extent to which financial resources are allocated to develop, support, and stimulate blended learning. So you can imagine if you have great visions and plans, but you don't have money, you can also not, for example, make sure that you have the facilities in place, because those usually cost money, or that there is expertise in your university, that there are blended learning advisors, for example, or that the support staff is also trained in the use of blended learning. So there should be some finances involved. So in level 1, there are no finances allocated to blended learning. Level 2, financial resources are incidentally allocated. So for example, you often see that in projects or pilots or grants for a specific pilot to develop, support, stimulate blended learning. And level 3, financial resources are structurally allocated to develop and support blended learning and teaching and education. So in that case, there's every year, you don't have to negotiate every year how much money do you want, but it's structurally allocated so that you can really work on things and make it future-proof. And the last part of the highest maturity level in this case is the allocation of resources is systematically evaluated and adjusted based on clear criteria and qualitative and quantitative data. So this is the maturity part again, so that you constantly review, okay, what are we doing with the money? Is this the best way we can use it? And how can we improve this? And in Delft, we are at level 2. We have some resources, but it all depends a bit year by year. Some resources are structural, but also a big part of the resources aren't structural. So if we want to become more mature, then we really need to do something about that. And I also think, for example, the allocation of the resources is evaluated. It is evaluated, but I think it could be more structural and based on more data. So the last dimension is facilities. And this is the extent to which institutions are equipped to facilitate blended learning and teachers. So you can think, for example, on is there a studio facilities that teachers can easily record videos? Is there a learning environment, and is there educational technology in place? But also, if you have the campus, are there different, for example, educational setups of your rooms? Because if you have just only lecture halls, it will become harder if you want to do something like team-based learning or more project group work. So that's also something which should be facilitated. So level 1, limited availability of facilities. Level 2, a wide variety of facilities are available. This includes both digital, so for example, the learning environment and tools, and physical. So what I talked about, the video recording studios or the different classroom setups. Level 3, again, the wide variety is available, but the more mature part is the development of the facilities is aligned with the institutional strategy. And also it's systematically evaluated and adjusted, everything you do. So I think in Delft we are level 3. For example, we have a really nice video recording studio for the teachers, and they can also just send an email and go there, so they don't have to fill in any form. So it's very easy for the teachers to be able to do that. And what we also doing is, for example, reviewing what we're offering, how can this be improved? So for example, we're now in a process of reviewing the video formats we're offering to teachers. So we want to have a more broad approach, like focusing on what kind of media you can use in your education, so broader than only video. And we're in the process of implementing that, improving the offering of the facilities. So if I go to the next slide. So we have a nice overview. This is a nice radiograph where we stand as Delft. So we're doing quite well in the institutional strategy and facilities, but I think we can improve in governance and quality assurance. And I hope with this demonstration, that it will also be the value of this maturity model. It is really a tool to get you thinking about your own institution and what are you doing. And I don't think it should be used as like an assessment or you need to get any points or so. It's really to have a nice, clear overview of where do you stand as an institution and where do you want to go. And I think the maturity model can give some guidelines and help to realize this. Okay, I will pause for a second and then ask, are there any questions? Let's see. I'm wondering in which category research outcomes, articles, conferences with best practice in blended learning would fall under. I think this is part, I would, oh, sorry, my screen is jumping. I would suggest, I think it's sharing and communities, because this is really about sharing your best practices. So also sharing within your institution, so creating communities of teachers who do that, but maybe also sharing outside your institution. For example, sharing the best practices of your institution so that other institutions can learn from it. But also, for example, sharing materials you've created. So for example, we have a math program for first and second year bachelor students. And all those materials as Delft, we share them under a Creative Commons license so that other people can also use those. So I think the research outcomes, I would put them on the sharing and communities, but it really depends. If you also use the research to improve your education, so for example, you do research to how you use your facilities, or you do research how your strategy is is implemented, then it would fall under the specific dimension. So in the maturity level, the highest level is always that you do some kind of research or you evaluate your actions based on data. So that's also, there's always some research included in the highest maturity level of each dimension. So I hope this answers your question a bit. Okay, I'm going to try to share a file in the chat, and hopefully it will work, because this is the file you will need for the breakout session, which will come after this. Open. It is sent successfully. So please, could you try to download the breakoutrooms.pdf in the chat? Oh, it's only to you. I need to send it to everyone. Sorry. Again, I will share it, because we're going to the next part. Let's go to work. Great. So first, I would like to ask you download the breakout rooms file in the chat, because this is the document you will be using in the breakout rooms. And if you download it to your own computer, then we know you can. I'm sure you can use it. And I will explain what we're going to do in the next time. So we're going to work in breakout groups, and that means that we will start the breakout rooms, and then you will be divided in groups of 4 or 3 people. And you're going to work with this maturity model. This assignment, which is on this PowerPoint slide right now, is also in the breakout rooms PDF. So there you can also find it, but I will introduce it. Oh, let's see. I'm afraid I cannot see a PDF. Well, first let me explain what we're going to do, and then I will send it again, and maybe we can see. I can maybe also send a link. First, if we start a breakout session, start with a round of brief introduction. So tell the other people in the room who you are, where you work, what your role is, so that everyone knows who is who. Then the second part, you need to discuss with each other which dimension you would like to discuss on the institution level. So you can pick any one of the 8 dimensions. Then go to the corresponding page and first study the dimension and indicators. Well, we discussed them here, but maybe it's also good to take a minute and just see what is the dimension and what is in the indicators. Then everyone should explain the current maturity level of your own institution, and maybe if you could illustrate this using examples. So that's also a bit of that you exchange maybe also some good examples from your institution or things you're struggling with each other. And then 6, describe what your institution needs to change due to COVID-19. This maturity model was developed before COVID-19, and I think this is very relevant now. So for example, maybe you need other facilities if you have COVID-19, or maybe your staff needs to be trained differently due to COVID-19. So also, I guess you yourself have some ideas on this, so also exchange them with each other. And point 7, formulate an action point on what you want to change or improve in your institution. So based on the input of point 5 and 6, maybe you have some ideas or you got inspired and think, well, maybe I want to do this in my institution. And then point 8, there is a link to Padlet. This is a tool where you can post like digital post-its. And under the there are the 8 dimensions are on the Padlet, and please put your points like the current maturity level, the example, action point, and maybe also the COVID part. Put that on a card in Padlet. So then we have a nice overview, and then everyone sees what the rest is doing, and maybe others also get inspired by your ideas. And then point 9. I think you have time to do like a couple of dimensions, go back to discuss another dimension and do the whole thing over again. I will for now stop share my screen, and I will try to share a link to the PDF. And in the meantime, are there any questions? Let's see if this works. Yeah, I'm also sending this document or this link, and this is a place where you can download it, but I guess you can also preview the PDF in the browser. So this is also something you could do. So the surfdrive.surf.nl URL is also a link to the same PDF. So maybe if you cannot download the PDF, you can also use that link. So are there any questions so far? One other remark, it could be that not everyone is participating. So if you are in a breakout room and there is nobody there, or nobody is sitting at the behind the computer, please come back to the main room, and then we will put you in another room. And during the breakout session, I will also, and Stefan is also here, is also part of the Embed team. We will hop between the different breakout rooms, and also you can ask your questions, or maybe we also have some suggestions or ideas, or we can share our own experience. So I think we can start with the breakout sessions. Let's see, Kirsten is not working in higher education. So maybe you can just think with the other participants. So please go to the breakout rooms.
If you end up in the breakout room by yourself, you can always return to the plenary room, and we will schedule you, group you with others, just in case when you end up alone in one of the breakout rooms.
Yeah. And Lizzie, I can only join breakout room 6.
Ja, ik heb breakout room 7.
Yes, you are assigned as well. I'm not sure if I can.
We kunnen ze niet bezoeken, zal ik maar zeggen.
Hmm.
En er zijn nog 10 mensen hier in deze ruimte. Dan hebben ze waarschijnlijk geklikt op join room. Ja. Ik ga even kijken.
Everyone who is still here, please join the room you are assigned to.
Ik check mijn room 7, wie er zijn, maar ik bedoel, en dan kom ik terug.
I was in room 1, but there was only one person that came back because I didn't know what to do.
Maybe you have to tell that person to come back to the plenary room, and then we will assign that person to another, to somebody else who's already
I'm
alone.
not sure I can go. Yeah, I can go back. Let me see. Yeah.
Going into room 7.
Yeah.
Okay, I see here is just one person. I will give him to room 1.
Also in room 2, there was only one person there.
Yes, I see. I just assigned him to room 1 now.
Yeah. Can I have access to all those rooms? It's
Yeah, I'm wondering how.
because I was assigned to room 2, it says, but normally I should be able to hop between them.
Yeah, how do we do that?
Weeby is not here anymore. No.
Ook die meneer in room 7, die was alleen. Die heb ik gevraagd naar de...
Yeah, to room.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can we connect?
Now he's with 2 people.
Of Stefan, misschien kun je
Move to room.
die mensen die hier zitten gebruiken als een room.
Move to room 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Move
to room.
In room 1.
Okay, John, I see you're still here as well. I will move you to another room.
Okay.
Room 5. Let me see. Here you go. Now you should be able. There are 3 other people as well there.
Hey Lizzie, in room 1, I think there is nobody that lead the workshop, and I did ask a question to participants, but they don't answer. There are 3 people and me, so in total 4.
In
room 1.
Yeah, they have to use the PDF, Stefan. Okay,
Yeah,
Stefan,
you have to use the PDF.
kan Stefan anders naar room 1 om ze een beetje weg te helpen?
Okay.
Yeah,
Stefan, I will move you to room 1.
Okay. And I only have that room now. It's okay.
I come with you, Stefan. If you need me, I can help you.
Weet je hoe de andere ruimtes zijn? Ik zie dat.
Room 4. Assigned to room 4.
Breakout rooms. Yeah, room 1. I will go there then. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Lizzie, kun jij die mensen die nu nog hier
Room 9.
aan de ruimtes?
Ja, ben ik nou aan het doen. Breakout room 9. George, zou jij misschien even bij breakout room 9 kunnen kijken?
Ja, goed zo. Geef maar even rechten.
Moet je even zoeken. Hier. Het zijn allemaal nieuwe mensen. Okay, I see there are still. Kun je er nou in, George?
Ik heb nog geen uitnodiging gekregen.
Als het goed is, moet je een link.
En er staan nu nog 2, 3 mensen ook nog te wachten. Nou, ja.
Staat er, krijg je niet te zien van join een pop-up?
Nee. Ik had wel er straks room 6 of was het, maar daar ben ik uitgestapt.
Kun je nergens naartoe op de een of andere manier?
Ik kan zeggen leave, maar dan ben ik uit de meeting.
Okay, Jacob, I see you don't have a room yet either. I will assign you to another room as well. I will assign you to room 9. And then you receive a message. Okay, there are still. Isabel is still here. Maka is also here. Okay. Maka, I will assign you to a room as well. I will assign you to room 8. Enjoy.
Ik krijg nu pas de link voor deze morning session met de mail.
Ah, komt hij nu binnen?
Ja.
Ja, die heb ik vanochtend nog even gestuurd. Dag Jeroen. We are just working with breakout sessions, so I will assign you to a room as well. I will assign you to room 9. Enjoy.
Hallo.
Hallo. Wiebe, wil je even in een andere kamer kijken?
Ik kon nu wel heen en weer hoppen
Ja?
tussen de. Ja.
Oh, super fijn.
Ja, ik zit even te denken qua tijd. Ik denk dat we tot 11 uur dat op zich wel lang genoeg is hoor.
Oké.
Dus dat het. Zal ik bij de Kamer zeggen dat we tot 11 uur hebben en dat we dan een kwartiertje pauze hebben en dat we dan 11:15 weer
Ja, is
doorgaan?
goed.
Ja.
Ik heb nou nog 2 mensen. Ja, er komen steeds mensen binnen. Nieuw binnen. Maar het is niet handig om die alleen in een breakout room te zetten, of wel?
Nee, want die weten volgens mij dan niet wat er moet gebeuren.
Nee. Zal ik ze gewoon ergens bijzetten, ook al worden de breakout rooms dan een beetje groot?
Ja, doe maar.
Volgens het voor. Dat komt omdat ze net de link gekregen hebben, Lizzie. Ik kreeg ook net de link van deze meeting.
Ja, dat zal het wel daardoor zijn, ja. Oké.
So for those just joining, you'll be grouped into a breakout session where people are talking about the use of the embed model. Ik zie Isabel nog steeds hier.
Yes. I'm not sure what. Okay. Nicoletta. Okay, welcome. We are working in breakout sessions, so I'll be assigning you to a breakout session. Okay. And it's
Maar Isabel moet je nog toebedelen, hè? Die staat al de hele tijd hier. Of heeft ze niet op de knop geduwd?
kan ook zijn dat er mensen andere dingen aan het doen zijn.
Ja. Maar je hebt hem wel toebedeeld aan een andere ruimte.
Yeah.
We
So I
can
think-
do that to our students, right?
The discussions were wonderful, I think, at least in
Yeah.
our breakout room. Actually, we didn't write down anything on the Padlet, but it was worth it. The discussion was worth it.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I think in the calendar we now have a 15-minute break, so then you can also get some coffee and maybe even go outside for a minute if it's not too cold or rainy.
Yeah.
And then I think in 11:15 we will continue, and then maybe we can also share some experiences about the breakout rooms. And if you have some time, you can also put it on the Padlet, but we can also discuss it in 15 minutes.
Yeah. Sounds great. Yeah.
Okay, I will get
Thank
some
you.
coffee.
Yep.
Okay, me too.
See you in a minute.
See you
Thank you.
after the break.
Thank you.
Hey, where is the Padlet? I can't find that. I don't know where to write that.
And somebody put the link for the Padlet one
link
more
to the
time.
Padlet.
Yeah.
One more time, please.
Ah, I see.
Okay.
So
There it
yeah,
is.
so you're free to write things down there, eh? Everyone, also from my group. Go ahead. I'm going for coffee, sorry.
Okay, see you after the break.
Do we think we can continue, Lizzie?
Yes, I think we can.
Okay. So I guess we now have 50 minutes and then we can discuss what we talked about, of what you talked about actually. So first, let me open up let's see, let me share my screen, and then I will open up the Padlet, because there are some things in there, and I think those are quite interesting. So let's see, we have 2 notes at institutional support, 1 note in professional development, and those are the things on the Padlet. So let's first discuss those, and then maybe someone else can share also what they did in their group. So for room 3, different models, the relationship between the central support unit and the local support unit. A central unit can frame approaches and provide support, while the local support can provide more customized support and implementation. Yeah, I think that's a really nice remark. Yeah, the difficulty with the embed is that it's very broad, so every university is organized in a different way, or every institution. But I think this is a nice way to approach institutional support on like the central level and the local level. I think this is a model that can also suit in other, I think we will, in Delft, we will also move more towards this model, that the central support organization will do the general broader support, and then in the faculties there will be more hands-on support for the faculties. Group 4 discussed the need for online digital exams due to COVID. Yeah, I think that's a very clear thing which is changed due to regular blended learning and the COVID learning, that the online digital exams is different. And in Delft we're struggling with that because we have a lot of traditional multiple choice exams or just written exams, and now we need some proctoring, but it also has some limitations. So I think that's a very good remark, that online digital exams are different in the COVID situation. Then let's move to the room 3, the staff development for the professional development. Centrally provided local solutions responsive to different type of waves. A huge demand, especially on technology enhanced learning, how to provide this centrally versus locally, scalable, difference in clear defined models, and some challenges, assessment again, the practice-based performance learning, well-being. Yeah, I think if I understand this card correctly, it's mostly the discussion how you can organize this on a central level and in the faculty or the local support. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop to share my screen. Yes, and maybe I also want to ask some other people who wants to give a short, maybe a short statement on what they did in their groups, because I thought there were nice, I hope between different groups there were very nice discussions. So can someone share their insights of their group or what their discussion was about?
Wiebe, can I have a comment here?
Yeah, sure.
Actually, our model worked fine in our group. We kind of displayed the levels 1, 2, and 3 on the screen. And then we didn't necessarily come to any firm conclusions on what level we are, but the discussion started immediately, and then it kind of fluctuated from on different levels. And that's what I think the model shows its strength in that way, that it's easy to get the discussion started when you display these levels, and then it starts. Okay,
yeah.
That was my comment.
I do. I think that's also the strength of the model, just to have some common language to talk about your education. And actually, it really doesn't matter if you're level 1 or 2 or someone between level 1 and 2. It's really about what are you doing in your institution and what can you do to go further. Yeah, thank you for that remark. I do agree. Someone else?
Yeah, maybe I can also add some some issues, some points that were raised in our group. So we didn't follow the model very strictly. We were soon in a kind of discussion. But one thing that an interesting point that was raised was was about the development, the support of teachers, and the cultural resistance that may exist. So an example was given that now, because of COVID, lecturers simply proceed with the way they were teaching before, and instead of standing in front of a large group of students face to face, now they simply use Zoom, and they do 80% was mentioned of them do exactly the same. And so they just use the Zoom tool, and for the rest they don't change.
So the teaching, the technology or the space changes, but not really the way of teaching.
Yeah, the design was simply the same, and so extra staff is hired, etc., to provide professional development. But so that there is there is an issue, like a kind of cultural change that is somehow required to go to a fully blended approach. Actually, that might be an issue. Another comment that was given in our group was that that because of COVID, like teachers now finally start to use an LMS, which they did not before. So I think those two points were raised in our group and discussed. And of course, we should not forget the student point of view. That is maybe something that is not focused so far. Like, how do students react to these to this situation, and do we take enough into account what they think about this and how they should cope with it? I think this is
one remark about that. The activity we did today was really about the institution and what the institution can facilitate. I do agree that student perspective is very important, but I think that comes more back in the course level and the program level. There's also the student experience part. So I do agree that's important, but yeah, maybe that should also be more included in the institution level. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Lars also raised his hand. Do you want to say something, Lars?
Yes, I do. And first of all, thank you to our group. We have been quite active. We had been investigating the topic of professional development, and we were focusing on the level 2 to even figure out what needs to take place in order to make a good level 2 with regards to the indicator. So actually we concluded out of two different perspectives. One has been the institutional perspective from institutional parts from around Europe. And as the extreme version in comparison to it, we had a MOOC among us. So then we ended up to conclude that it has been very insightful to deal with the understanding of complexity. So what kind of complexity should we take a starting point to understand in order to enable a kind of solutional thinking, where we in between come across stakeholders, institutional setups, policy makers, and all of it, even to make it happen, to reduce complexity or even manage it. This has been the first point. The second point has been with regard to enable our new thinking towards new strategies, equally, whether it be blended learning or whatever the name might be, is even, well, and Anna has been great to formulate it, to deconstruct the old ideas to even pave the way for the new thinking. So this kind of thinking which you have been started with this kind of webinar has been also in demand in order to develop professional development itself. And at the end, the advice from the MOOC perspective had been, well, let's start out with a formalized approach of training when we all talk about quality and standardization, might be a helping aid to even leverage the professional development at the end. This has been the three concluding points from our group. We also tried to put into the Padlet, but hadn't been updated. It's all my fault.
No,
sorry.
no problem. But thank you for your insights and the discussions. We have 4 more minutes. Does someone else wants to share their maybe something insight or maybe a good example he or she heard from another institution? No. Okay. Well, thank you so much for attending this session. And I think I want to stress also what Thea said. I think the strength of this model is to use it as a way to start the conversation, and maybe also in your own institution. So it's not the aim of the model is not to judge you on how you're doing, but really give you a perspective on what you could do or could change. And I think this model can help with that. On the Embed website, you can also find the whole maturity model, but also some workshop materials if you like to use them in your own institution. And we're also working on implementation guidelines. Due to COVID, it is a bit delayed, but I'm hoping they will be, next month they will be available. And in those implementation guidelines, we describe per dimension how you can implement that. So we give some suggestions on models you can use, some articles which may be relevant, and some other examples. And they will be also published on the Embed website. So I think then it will become more concrete, the model. So for now, I would like to thank you for your attendance and your active participation in the workshop. And I hope it was insightful, this workshop, and hopefully you will use this model in your institution, or even that it gets you started to think about your education. And if you want to contact us, you can find our contact information on the Embed website, and then please send us an email or send me a tweet, or an email, and my information is also in the slides of this session, and they will also be shared after the session. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Wiebe. Thanks so much. I was also part of one of these groups, the breakout groups, and it was really good to hear from each other how all are challenged. That is already reassuring that we're all very much challenged, and but also very optimistic in finding solutions, and having been forced also to come with solutions, and mainly also the barrier of staff needing to change, making the time available to change, and the institution to make change available is in this timing of the COVID crisis not an issue anymore. Everybody knows we have to change, and this is also then a momentum that everybody's taking to make that change. And a maturity model like Embed is a very helpful instrument to that. That we further can support you with the Embed instrument is also captured in a MOOC, and this MOOC is developed by the group of Embed, mainly by the core group of KU Leuven, Delft University, and Edinburgh. And Edinburgh University has actually developed the MOOC with the input of the other universities and launched that on the platform of FutureLearn. I would like to ask Yi-Shan to give her presentation on the MOOC, and I believe all the way from Taiwan you are at this moment.
Yes, I'm in Taiwan at the moment.
What's the time there now?
It's 6:30 in the evening.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so should I share my screen?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah, thank you, George, for the introduction. Yeah, so on behalf of the Embed project team, I will be presenting, introducing you to this MOOC that was first launched in May this year. And we will be relaunching this on the 16th of November. This time it will be on self-paced learning. And yeah, as George mentioned that this MOOC was led by the University of Edinburgh with support from all the other partners. Although I only just left the university last month, so here I'm putting my new affiliation with Monash University in Australia. So this MOOC is one of the key outputs of the Embed project, and which I think you are pretty familiar by now. So we, key to this, for this project, a very important part of the project is to consider all levels of an institution, from course design to organizational aspects, such as staff support, leadership, and others, which you have just had a long activity on. And so in light of this, we have produced this embed maturity model as a reference model. And this MOOC really has been developed sort of around this maturity model that you have just used. And this is just to show the teaching team, all the people who have involved in developing this MOOC. So the, as mentioned earlier, the embed project seeks to innovate higher education through blended education, and staff professional development is considered the key to the capacity of institutional transformation, and especially at present. So the purpose of this MOOC is to provide professional development for higher education leadership and practitioners who have influence on the design and implementation of blended learning. And on this course, we invite learners to evaluate their blended learning practice by considering student experience, pedagogy, and educational environment. Our target audiences are policymakers, institutional leaders who are responsible for technology-enhanced learning, and also learning technologists and practitioners. And although our focus is in higher education, the course has attracted learners from other educational sectors too. And in the past, we found that learners, they actually had very interesting discussion on things that are in common in different sectors and those that do not necessarily apply. So for example, when it comes to applying this maturity model, it is quite clear that for the K-12 sectors, they will need to include parents as a key player. But overall, whichever sectors learners come from, they were able to benefit from the discussion that we have had in this course, and also various case studies. So far, this MOOC has provided training to more than 4,000 learners around the world. And just a brief introduction to the course structure here. This course is 5 weeks long, and there are 3 components. Each one is marked with a different color. So in the first week, we introduce the concepts to blended learning. And in the middle 3 weeks, we focus on this maturity model. Each week focuses on one level. And in the final week, we reflect on what learners have learned so far, and sort of also look into the future where blended learning will be standing. So let me talk about each week in a bit more detail. So in week 1, we tackled this question, why blended learning? Blended learning can be perceived very differently by different people in different places. So in week 1, we try to conceptualize blended learning and open up the discussion on the usefulness and applicability of the term. And as I said, we had learners from different sectors, and so it was a very interesting discussion among the learners in terms of how blended learning, how different definitions apply in different contexts. And as you might have heard that blended, in this project, we distinguish blended learning, blended teaching, and blended education as different terms. Blended learning focuses on learning experience, and blended teaching focuses on pedagogical design, and blended education focuses on the overall institutional environment. So throughout the course, we have tried to tackle with these different levels. And we also encourage learners to think more critically while adopting blended learning, considering the benefits and challenges. And finally, we introduce maturity and quality guidelines that could be useful for continuous learning and improvement. So following that, we then introduced the maturity model in the following 3 weeks. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, that we introduced case studies to illustrate each dimension so each level has multiple dimensions, and each dimension would be illustrated with one case study that we have collected from different partners of this embed project. We also have quite a few activities encouraging learners to reflect on their own practice, where they stand, where they would like to move to in terms of the maturity level, and how they plan to achieve the desired level. And we also try to use this MOOC as a platform to build a community of practice, encouraging learners to not only share their experience, but also share resources. So one special feature of this course is that we offer learners the flexibility to choose 1 or more weeks of materials to study, specifically the middle 3 weeks. And this is because we were aware that these different levels of maturity model may not necessarily be that relevant to all our learners in terms of their daily practice. Some of them may be interested in all levels, but some may only be interested in the course level. So we decided to offer this flexibility, and we also have guidelines in terms of how many learning steps they can choose to engage with, depending on how many weeks of material they plan to work on. So this only applies to the middle 3 weeks. For the first week and the final week, we expect learners to participate fully. So heading into the final week, we encourage learners to reflect back on what they have learned so far and then look ahead. So we look at key elements of transformative practice of blended learning. First of all, we look at the influence of our beliefs and teaching philosophy on teaching practice. So for example, if you see yourself as a coach to your students, in what ways would you deliver your teaching? We introduced the ABC design as an approach to ensure that blended learning activities align well with learning design. So it's not just about using technology, but it's really about aligning with the pedagogical intent. And in fact, this MOOC was also designed following this ABC approach. So in this course, we really try to emphasize this pedagogical grounding of every decision that we make about blended learning approaches and adoption methods. And so we also zoom out to the overall culture of an institution. And we try to also bring people's attention to institutional cultures and how cultures can also eat your institutional strategy. So this is an aspect that really deserves much attention. And then we invite learners to work on the action plans, which sort of they have started in the previous weeks, but then in the final week, we encourage them to sort of, again, thinking about how to make these plans more concrete, especially after all the debates that we have had so far. We have also encouraged them to use SWOT analysis to identify their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to innovations related to blended learning. And finally, we end this week and the whole course on future thinking discussion. Where does blended learning stand in a post-digital world where the line between digital and non-digital is no longer clear? And this is perhaps even more so today than before in this COVID time. So we ask, we sort of ask quite provocative questions as well, and asking people to think about whether there is still a value for blended learning, where we need to, whether there is a need to transform it dramatically and to redefine it, and what should we be focusing on when we talk about blended learning today. So what we really want to achieve with this MOOC is to build a community of practice to exchange knowledge and curate useful resources about good practice of blended learning. And we have found that in our past two iterations or past two rounds of the course, students really genuinely appreciate the opportunities just to be able to learn from each other. And there was obviously a lot of conversation about how people, institutions, and also teaching staff respond to the challenges since the outbreak of the pandemic. And there was also a lot of sharing of resources. So we also see the opportunities of higher education institutions to use this MOOC for professional development. So apart from self-paced learning for individuals, institutions can also make use of the materials and incorporate them into their own professional development program. So they could use the material to that we have created for this course to facilitate blended learning if so wish. So for example, if using a flipped classroom approach, you can use the video or the reading material as pre-course assignment, pre-course material, and move the discussion to the classroom when students and teachers meet face-to-face. But if meeting face-to-face is not possible at this current time, you can also choose to facilitate this training completely online. So as I have mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, this MOOC will be relaunched on the 16th of November, and the course should be open for enrollment from next week. Yeah, and it will be available on FutureLearn, and I have included a link here for you. Please do take a look and distribute widely if you find this useful, if you think this may be useful for your institution and your colleagues. Thank you.
Thanks, Ishan. Let me check if there are some immediate questions from the audience, so you can use the chat if you have. Ishan?
I'll share this link here.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's the link to the MOOC. No immediate questions. Thanks so much, Ishan, for contributing by explaining the MOOC, and I hope that many others will sign up and check out the MOOC for us. We come to the final part now of this morning. That is the some more questions in the poll that we have prepared, and some open questions, also to get some feedback on the instrument. And let me check, Lizzie, if you can make them visible. Some of the questions are maybe part of the breakout session, but we'd like to get an overview by the whole group on their responses.
Can you open the question on the poll, Shores? It says I'm logged in on another device, so I cannot. So the polling session is inactive. Maybe because we are on the same account, but I'm not sure.
I can see a poll now.
Yeah.
You can?
Yeah, but because I'm an instructor or I don't know how it's called, I can also only see the results, but maybe people can.
It shows okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
Um,
I cannot do anything, but if you can, that is perfect.
yeah, then I hope also that people can fill out the poll. For me, it's just a page. But let's see. Let's pretend it works and hope that it works. Yeah, I see some.
I see the first results coming in, so that looks good.
I cannot respond. So yeah, so we want to check some of the polls with you. That's also important for us for the continuing with the embed tool on where you mostly will use it. So first of all, tell us a bit about yourself. On what level of European maturity model of blended education do you work generally? So is it in course design, curriculum design, both, institutional level, policy development, even none of the above? Let me check how many people I have. So we see a clear majority on both on curriculum and course design and institutional level. It also depends very much, of course, on the representation here in this group. Is that what you would expect, Wiebe, from on this? But
like the results, yeah. Well, I think all the answers can be correct. It really depends on what you're focusing on. To make one remark, the embed model can be used to see how mature your course or curriculum is. So it's not really a design method, but in the implementation guidelines, we will suggest some design methods you can use to design your course. But it's more to the maturity model can more be used to improve your course and check how mature it is, and it gives some suggestions on how you can improve it. It's the same with the institutional strategy. It is not a design instrument, but it's really a maturity instrument.
Yeah.
But I think the maturity model gives some guidelines on how you can use, for example, how it can be used both on course, program, and institution level.
Yeah, it's a kind of a check on maturity, and then when you turn it around, there's also a kind of a roadmap on where to make further progress. Here also, the next question for me, the European maturity blended education is relevant for improving. It is, I guess, here you see more of all of the above. It's a more overarching.
Yeah. But you can also use it if you only want to use it for course design, that's also fine. You can also only pick the course level, or if you only want to use it for institutional strategy or support, or you can also only use the institution part. But if you really want to improve as a whole institution, I think the connection between both course, program, and institution level is very important. But if you'd like, you can also only just focus on one part.
Yeah, clear. So, and it very much depends, of course, on the representation of what you would fill in here as well. And I will consider adopting, which is important for us, I will consider adopting the European maturity model as an instrument. Yeah, here again is the word not good chosen like the design, but Lizzie, there were some open questions where I hope to find them here as well. Or can we show them?
I cannot show them here, but I can tell them out loud. They are here in my email.
Can you put them in the chat maybe? Can you copy them in the chat?
Yes. I will copy them one by one.
Yeah. Okay, so I end the poll.
The first one.
Okay. Yeah, there also so these were some open questions formulated. I think I would like to use the instrument. Well, I don't know frequently or how does it work then, Wiebe? Is you use that as a constant measurement next to your performance, so to say, or in line with your strategies and policies. is it something that you would say is taken up regularly? How does that then work?
Yeah, well, how I would use this model, you can use it as a starting point to see where is your institution standing and what do we want to achieve. And if you're really aiming for the level 3 in the maturity, then for each dimension, you're constantly improving yourself and checking regularly, are we doing the best things and can we improve things? So if you're really mature, I don't know if you need the maturity model, but you can use it as a regular check. For example, do it once a year. How are we standing? How are we going the right way? Or for example, if you're designing a course, you can do it upfront, but also if, for example, you did the course, use it as a sort of a review to review your course and see, okay, how can I improve my course for the next run? So it really depends on how you want to use it, but it's a good starting point, I think, both for course, program, and institutions. And then yeah, it also depends on your institution on how you want to use it, but you can use it as just a regular, maybe sort of a checkup. How are we doing, and are we still on the right track?
Yeah, yeah, I see it also as helping for a guided discussion. No? So if you have a team who is responsible to look at that, also at management level, but also at the, all the micro, meso, macro level, that you take it up and use it as a guided discussion, depending on your institution's wishes, half year, a year, also in line with the strategy that you have set out. Yesterday I also referred to the e-excellence benchmarking instrument for quality in online education. It works a bit the same. It's also that you, after every 2 years, you take that up again, check if your roadmap is fulfilled, that you have followed since you did the first check, and then you, with the new developments in innovating education, you also check if you have been, are still up to date, compare with other universities, and well, make a new roadmap, so to say, on that. The next question that we have there, Lizzie. I think I would like to use the, oh, sorry, I found the instrument unnecessarily complex. Is that, what is somebody to reflect on the instrument that they now have used also in the breakout session? Any reflection on the user-friendliness, I must say, of the instrument?
Yeah, well, I can comment on that. It can be that it is unnecessarily complex, but in my experience, an institution, a higher institution, is a complex organization. And as you saw on the institution level, everything is linked together. So strategy is linked to finances, and finances is linked to do something, for example, if you want to do something with facilities. So if it's, yeah, if you think it is not suitable for your institution, you should not use it. But I think if you use it in a workshop setting, it can be a nice way to start a conversation. And maybe that's only the only way you want to use it. But if it's not suitable for your institution, then don't use it and maybe find another instrument which is more suitable.
Who do you think, Wiebe, is the key person to take the initiative to say in the institution, we are going to use the maturity model? Who's going to launch this?
Yeah, that really depends. If you're on an institution level, I think how we're using it in Delft is for each faculty, we're going to create a plan for the next 2 years, what they want to achieve on in blended learning. And then I will be a sort of facilitator, and in the faculty, together with the head of ESA, maybe the dean, and maybe 1 or 2 teachers, and the educational support department of the faculty, we're going to create a plan, and the embed model will be like a sort of basis, or the reference model we will use to create an action plan for the faculty. So I think if you really want to use it also to change something in an institution, you also need some management, how do you say that, backup, or they also need to be in favor of using this model. And then I would suggest to use a facilitator, something like an educational advisor who is familiar with the model, to organize some sessions and to start a discussion, and after that create an action plan and maybe create a project or see where you can fit it into existing projects. or processes in your institution to implement it.
Mm-hmm. Does that mean then that always to be the initiative at the management level? Because or could you also have an initiative taken at micro level, because it covers the micro level as well?
Yeah, it can also be, but if you want, for example, if you want to change something in a course, you can also use it with one teacher or a course team with a couple of teachers who are responsible for a course. But if you really want to change something in the institution, so in the institutional level, I think you need also the management of the institution to change something. And if you want to change something in a program level, you also need a program director who is involved. Because otherwise you are doing something without the backup of or the management who is supporting it, and then it will not work. But I think if you have a course, you can also use it just with one teacher to see where are we standing with the course and how can we improve it.
Good start would be that some key persons in the organization follow the MOOC so that they are all on the same page before starting to use it. Yishan, you have a comment there. Can you say something on that?
Yeah, it's basically what I put here. I was just sharing that on the MOOC, we have also introduced a few other sort of tools to help people evaluate the quality as well as maturity of blended learning. So various tools, and as I mentioned earlier, that we also introduced the SWOT, which is not really about maturity evaluation, but sort of various tools that are all relevant to this domain of activities, and we encourage learners to choose accordingly based on their needs, and if needed, also we may encourage them to adapt blended these models. For example, this maturity model that we have developed, some learners may find it useful to further divide the levels down, maybe not just a 3, maybe it's like 1.5, 2.5. Yeah, and then and as I also mentioned, some learners are from other sectors, they may find it useful to add other actors such as parents if it's K-12 sectors. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do like your remark that this maturity model is, I think, often just a starting point, and you need more to implement high quality blended learning. So you also need other models and maybe other theories. Only, for example, designing blended learning, this maturity model doesn't state how you should design blended learning. It only states that you should use some kind of model or theory or principle to design blended learning to, yeah. So, and same with the strategy, we don't write how you should write your strategy, but only that there should be a strategy, a well-aligned strategy. And in the highest maturity level, it's also regularly evaluated based on data. So I think this is only a framework. And if you really want to take blended learning up to a higher level, this can be a starting point, but you need much more. And again, about the complexity, it is not easy to change this. But we hope this model will give some, give a framework which can help you and your institution or your teachers to maybe have a starting point.
Yeah, that's really valuable that you have a guided discussion, and you saw already in the breakout sessions that the discussions immediately got going. Instruments that are complementary in this is the excellence instrument that I showed yesterday shortly. That is also helpful to get also advice on building the strategy that is referred to.
And again, this will also be included in the implementation guidelines of Embed. Then also those for example, the excellence framework will be included, and also other frameworks will be included for the specific dimensions.
Yeah, and also there is on the website also a list of good practices that are very helpful then. Then we have, well, the next question, we can skip.
Well, there is a question about have you evaluate the maturity levels of this maturity model? Yes. In the presentation yesterday, we explained that this maturity model was based on literature research and interviews by the partner institutions. And after that, we did a Delphi study. And that means that we asked experts on blended learning. So they all had more than 10 years of experience with blended learning and some even 25 years. We asked them about the maturity, the dimension, and also the indicators. And in the end, they needed to reach consensus. So in the end, 90%, there was 90% consensus with the experts that these maturity levels and the indicators are important for blended education.
Interesting question. Wiebe, difference between blended and hybrid education, and if the embed model is already used for quality assurance agencies, but it's not really, like you said in the beginning, it's not really a quality instrument. That is also different. So maybe shortly, the connection hybrid, blended education, and quality and the model.
Yeah, again, first the blended and hybrid learning. I think the most used for blended learning is usually the integration of face-to-face and online education. So this is and hybrid learning is more that you have synchronous learning, so everybody is learning at the same time, but that it's both in the physical and in the online space. So for example, that you have students in the classroom, but also students online which are following the same course. So I think that usually hybrid learning is used in that way.
Yeah, what you've seen in especially in universities now with the COVID crisis that wanted to keep the schedule of the program the same, but not were allowed to have 500 students in the room. They have small groups of students present, others online, and not just giving the same campus education. You have different pedagogical models of using the combination of presence education with online education. That what we have captured under synchronous hybrid education, but it can be part of a blended model as well. Yeah, there was the question also about the relation with the quality assurance agencies and the embed model. But you already indicated there is embed is not a quality instrument. It's about the integration of a strategy in your institution on transition to a blended online education, as the quality is different. It's about the implementation actually and the instruments used. It's a different approach, but they're complementary, and therefore we also think that embed and the excellence, for example, are complementary models.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the question of Sebastian. I'm not sure what you mean, but how mature are the level? Have you evaluated the maturity level of this maturity model? I'm not sure what you mean. How mature is your model? What we did, we included other maturity models as in the literature research. And then again, we evaluate this maturity model with experts in blended learning. But I'm not sure what you mean. So maybe you can open up your mic, or maybe
Ruben from
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking, because I'm quite interested in this process, because I think it's a key point to analyze the maturity of higher education institution. But I would like to know your opinion if you are studying the maturity of this process of this institution. If you look around and see many other processes in production, industry, and so on, organizations, and they are using standards in evaluating the capacity model. For instance, the capability maturity model of CMN, that is the 5 levels of maturity and so on. Did you check this? Because if you are evaluating your capability, your maturity, asking to the experts of the field, I think there's something missing. Can you understand me?
Yeah, well, the difficulty, I was not really involved in the first part, so I'm not very much aware of the other maturity models. That's really the part of KU Leuven. They really also incorporated those in the literature research. So I'm afraid I cannot answer your question at this moment.
So maybe I can add something to this because I was involved in the first stages. So although I cannot summarize or recall all the details of the other models, but we did. So in the beginning, we collected all existing maturity models, and the one that you mentioned was one of them. And so because actually in the early stages, we did not want to develop our own model per se. So we thought everything is there. Let's kind of bring a synthesis of existing models. We don't need to develop a new one, but none of those existing frameworks or models captured what we wanted. And so hence we did look at them, and we still felt the need to develop this new embed model. But at this moment, so ad hoc, I cannot go into more details. But to answer your question, we did consider them, yeah.
And I think the results of IO1, so the literature research, are also available on the embed website, aren't they? Or
I'm not sure. The report is there, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a report with the extensive literature research. So if you want to know more, maybe you can also go to the embed website to take a look at the results of the intellectual output 1, and we will check if it's there, and otherwise we will put it on the website.
Yeah. And in that report, not all, but several other models are described and compared. So you can find more details there. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Ruben, for your question. There's another question here, which I'm not familiar with, actually. I see that what's the difference between blended learning and blendedness, as that term is used since the COVID pandemic? I don't think there's, I haven't seen that term, actually. More the question about hybrid that was coming up lately quite often. So I would guess that would be the same, the blendedness.
Yeah, I can make one remark. I also don't know the term blendedness, but what we use in Delft for the COVID-19 crisis is a remote emergency teaching. So that is that the teachers are moving online and trying to do some online activities the best they can, but not really with a really deliberate design behind this. So maybe that's more referring to that. So in Delft we use emergency online teaching. But I think with blended learning, the main key is that there is a real, if you have a blended course, there is a real design behind it, a real idea. And it's not just putting some online elements in a course, but it's really deliberately designed.
Yeah, like Terja is also indicating, it's more often the term hybrid learning is suddenly emerging, and that has to do with the combination of presence education as well as online education mixed together in the current situation of the COVID. Lizzie, there was one. Please define only the final question that you have. With a pinch of humor, says there. Emergency online teaching. I usually refers to. Yeah. You see, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a pitfall at this point.
Actually, in time when our teachers talk, we had the emergency legislation for a couple of months, and we have which we haven't had since the Second World War. So, but now after the 1940s, we had the emergency legislation. Okay, so we have the analogy to emergency online education, and that is with a pinch of salt. When one of our teachers, since that I did this emergency online education today, everybody knows what we are talking about. But anyway, it's a positive kind of attitude. I kind of managed. That is the feeling we have about this terminology. But this hybrid emergency, I mean hybrid education, it kind of appeared out of nothing. It started with our teachers claiming for hybrid classrooms. So, but maybe I'm using too much time now, Bob. That's our situation, yeah.
Mostly the hybrid's mostly the response of keeping the schedule as it was. So having the actual teaching, but then to a smaller group and combine it with the ones who are not allowed, because otherwise the rooms get too busy, who are online. That's why the hybrid was so much emphasized now. And emergency indicates really indeed to a crisis. And what we see is also that it's not really the best publicity to online education, this emergency remote teaching, because there are a lot of complaints for students who say we don't want online education anymore. But they are not aware of the decades of research in online education, of good quality online education, which is now missing often, as it is an emergency tool, used as an emergency tool. That's why we also want to emphasize and yesterday in my presentation also indicated that the most priority is now educate the educator in professionalizing in digital education. So that is that's really a next step, and Embed can support that as well. Oh yeah, there is some reference to hybrid there. Okay, Lizzie, there was one final question, I think, in that list. So not number 7, number 8.
Yeah, there were 2.
No,
I have number 7 right now.
Okay. No, yeah, okay. I don't think you need a technical person for that. But if you have the question number 8.
Yes, I'm just copying it now. There you go.
Yeah, thanks. So I think I can use the instrument without the support of the thanks. I need to learn a lot of things before I could get going with the instrument. Is that the feeling maybe that some people have? Is that good reason for that, or just follow the MOOC that is now promoted by Yishan? Is it necessary to do the MOOC first, you think, to use the instrument, or is it recommendable?
In my opinion, it's highly recommendable, because if you have the maturity model itself is just a PDF with the different dimensions, but it really helps in the MOOC. There are a lot of examples for each dimension, so I think it really helps to get a better feeling of what does it mean. For example, institutional support, what does it mean, or what does inclusiveness means? And I think if you follow the MOOC, and it's very good that it's now open, that everyone can join, then you can really see the examples and what we mean by it. So it's highly recommended to just at least take a look and see what it is.
Yeah, and in the chat also Yishan indicated that the MOOC is already available now, where you can register now for the MOOC, which is good timing, I think. You can find that MOOC via the Embed website or on FutureLearn platform immediately. Okay, time for 1 or 2 more questions from the audience. Remarks? Otherwise, only appreciation for the speakers of this morning. Then I think I'm going to close the meeting. I think we have covered a lot in these 2 mornings of Embed training sessions. Really, I think is inspiring to pick it up, to have a look also at the MOOC, pick it up, and well, the urgency is there, and tools like this are very helpful and very recommendable. Yeah, and so thank you so much for the speakers this morning. And for this afternoon, I invite you all to join again at 2 o'clock with this program in which you are looking at artificial intelligence in education, inclusiveness, and on virtual mobility. So promises to become an interesting afternoon as well. Thanks so much and enjoy your lunch. Hope to see you later today.
Have a nice day, everyone. Enjoy.
Have a nice day, everyone. And please note that the room is the same link as yesterday for this afternoon. So I just shared it in the chat. So it's different from this morning.
Okay, thanks.
So you can copy it and save it somewhere. Looking forward to seeing you there at 2. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.